tribulations, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop me, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The law, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right is gone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS television series preview. Today, we are bringing you our preview slash kind of review of the new HBO Max Warner Brothers television show, Peacemaker. Now, this one stars John Cena as Peacemaker. Now, we're also going to get into the rest of the cast, give a quick synopsis, give our overview of the season without spoiling anything, because this is spoiler free, just letting you all know what we thought of our impressions of the first 7 episodes of this show. So here is the quick synopsis for Peacemaker. Set after the events of the Suicide Squad, the series explores the origins of Peacemaker and his subsequent missions. That synopsis tells you absolutely nothing about this show. Again, we have John Cena as Peacemaker, Steve Agee as John Economist, who is or was a pivotal character in the Suicide Squad film. And then we have Miss Danielle Brooks, who plays Leota Adebayo, who was created for this show. So don't go looking in your comic books to find out who this character is. This character was explicitly created for this show. Then we have Mr. Robert Patrick, who plays Augie Smith, Peacemaker's dad. We have Miss Jennifer Holland, who plays Emil Harcourt. Again, now that is a character that some of you all already know who that person is, because if you know enough about DC Comics, you know who that person is. We have Mr. Freddie Stroma. I had to pause because, listen, he plays Adrian Chase, the vigilante. I remember the Arrowverse. Vividly remember Arrow. I remember Adrian Chase in Arrow and him being the vigilante in Arrow. And then all of a sudden I got him in Peacemaker, and I'm like, oh, this is not the same character at all. And then we have Mr. Chukwudi Iwuji playing Crimson Mern. That's another character that was explicitly created for this show. So again, quick overview of the series here. We are reintroduced to the Peacemaker after the events of the Suicide Squad, which we thought maybe he had passed away. If anybody remembers the end with him and Idris's character, you thought Peacemaker was dead. And then we got news that we're going to get a Peacemaker series. So it picks up from there with Peacemaker recovering from the hospital. Once he recovers from the hospital, we get Amanda Waller's plan kicks in of what she's going to use Peacemaker for. Here we get Mr. Crimson Mern, who is the leader of this team, informing Peacemaker, hey, we need you to help us find these alien butterflies that go into people's orifices and take over their minds. And that's all I'm going to say about any of that, because as the series goes on and you get more reveals on what these butterflies are, it gets really interesting. It really becomes a James Gunn series, which is something that if there was any fear at all that James Gunn had complete control of this series, by the first episode, you'll never question that again. This is Slither on steroids. That's what the Peacemaker is. It is that type of show. But when we do get reintroduced to the Peacemaker, and then we get reintroduced to all of these other characters with the Peacemaker, to me, that's when the show really, really takes off. Like, it's key moments here with Peacemaker with the rest of this team that are funny, offensive, heartwarming, extremely sad, extremely funny, extremely everything. Like, every element about this show, it felt like at no point in time were they going to pull any punches. You were either going to like what we're going to do or you're going to hate what we're going to do, but we're always going to be true to the vision of what James Gunn wanted the Peacemaker to be. And when you're watching it, you kind of understand why he chose this character to create a first spinoff for. Because this character, to me, lends itself to be way more into the sensibilities of what James Gunn is as a creator and a filmmaker. This show is bonkers, but it does not repeat necessarily the same trade that you got from the Suicide Squad film. So while some of the humor beats are the same, a lot of them are not. At times, it feels like a completely different genre than you got in the Suicide Squad film. And I think that is one of the things I love the most about this show is that it it didn't take away anything that I loved about the Suicide Squad movie and say we're just going to duplicate it and make a television series and just take all the elements from the movie that people love. Instead, it felt like they decided, okay, we're going to take this character and then create a completely different world around him than we had to in the film. Which at times the film, while it was silly, it's so much humor in it, it still had a self-seriousness about it. Here, none of that exists. At no point in time that I feel the need to take this show overly serious. Now, that does not mean this show does not have its emotional beats, especially when John Cena and Robert Patrick are on screen with one another. Their father-son dynamic in this show, it's disgusting at times, just from the treatment, but it's also real. And if you feel Peacemaker as he's trying his best just to be the son that he thinks his father wants him to be, and he does everything for his father. And when we get a reveal of Robert Patrick's character in it, it kind of makes a little more sense why he would want to do that, but also it pushes a completely different like agenda on what this show could be just when you find out who Peacemaker's dad is. And again, it's another great Easter egg by James Gunn. One thing he's done well so far with his DC movie and this television series is that he's taking characters from the DC comics that some people may know, some people may not know. Some of them that were extremely offensive to people in the time they were created, and some that people just completely forgotten about. And he's using them and he's building upon them in ways that it makes a person like me want to go back and be like, okay, well, who the heck is this character? Like, why is this character created this way? Like, what was DC thinking when they created this character? Like, I found myself saying it a lot, especially when I went back to realize that some of these characters were straight from DC Comics. And then James Gunn does a great job of taking characters from comics and keeping their element of themselves in the comics and putting it on screen for you. While he may change it and make it a little more realistic, he never tries to make it more digestible of what that character is. So if that character is offensive in the comic books, it's going to be offensive on screen when you get it from James Gunn. Just think of the Weasel in the Suicide Squad. It's a cute little weasel until you realize he was killing children. But that's what James Gunn does here. Even in Peacemaker, he gives you these type of characters, and then when you allow him to create two completely different characters for it, and then have those characters weigh so heavily on the story and be big reveals down the line, I think that's even more of a reason why you like this show. Again, unlike other comic book shows that are currently out, and some are better than Peacemaker, some are not remotely close to being as good as Peacemaker, but none of them take the risks that Peacemaker take. Like, again, this is not a show that in any way, shape, form, or fashion is he going for a general audience to love it. I think he just said, I have a vision. This is what I want to do. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And through his earnest about it, I think you, as an audience member, will love this show even more. Again, it starts off really silly. Its concept is really silly. It's a big alien invasion. You have to dispel a little bit belief, interject yourself with a little bit comic book knowledge to think that Peacemaker would be the person that would actually have to stop an alien invasion, and we wouldn't get other superheroes to do so. Granted, it's kind of addressed why it's Peacemaker here, and because Amanda Waller, who's still in this series, still played by Viola Davis, because it's Amanda Waller, it gives you leeway that you wouldn't get if it wasn't her. To say, okay, we can see why Amanda Waller would pick Peacemaker to do this, because she doesn't care about his life at all. So if he dies, he dies during a secret covert mission to stop alien butterflies from going into people's orifices and taking over their brains. Like, it makes perfectly good sense why you would have Peacemaker do it and not Batman, Superman, Flash, Black Lightning, Elastic Man, any any of the billions of superheroes in DC's comic universe, but instead you get Peacemaker. And because you get such a great performance from John Cena, you won't care. After the second episode, you won't care at all. Now, the first episode is I hate to call it a pilot episode, but the first episode is always the roughest episode for any new series. This one is rough up until the end. Once you get to the end, once it laid this groundwork on what this show was going to be, and it does it in the first episode. Once that groundwork is laid, you can then sit back and enjoy this show. Unless you just wanted something more serious, which again, if you saw the Suicide Squad film, if you've seen any of the press materials from Peacemaker, he has a pet eagle named Eagly. A pet eagle named Eagly. And it's multiple scenes of people making fun of him from naming his eagle Eagly or him having a pet eagle at all. Like, if you get that and then you come in thinking you're going to get something serious, I don't know what you're thinking about. But if you are someone who loves James Gunn's work, and not necessarily the PG-13, PG versions of what James Gunn work is. So if you love the Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe this is not for you, because that's a little held back. But if you love Slither, I think the other one's called My Hero, or Hero, I can't remember exactly. It was James Gunn's first take on a hero, on a superhero genre. If you loved any of his previous works where you knew he had complete control over it, and it was just crazy to be crazy, if you loved any of those, you're going to love Peacemaker, especially Slither, because to me, that's Peacemaker's like distant cousin or first cousin is Slither. Like, some of those same elements that I enjoyed about that film are in Peacemaker. Again, the heart, the disgustingness of its villains or monsters in it. Like, it's certain times you see monsters in Peacemaker and it gives you direct callbacks for me to Slither. And I said, this is what happens when you just say you can do whatever you want to, just give us a good product. And to me, James Gunn produced one of the best superhero projects of the year. And this is we're at the beginning of the year, so I'm going to say even, because I saw most of this in 2021. Y'all know that now. So when I say of the year, I'm also talking of 2020, 2021. Like, the Peacemaker, I did not see a superhero show again that I felt took the risk that Peacemaker takes. And I'm not going to tell you it lands all the time. But if you take big swings and you hit at least 85% of the time, your big swings become more important because you're never playing it safe. And Peacemaker never plays it safe. So, again, Peacemaker brought to you by HBO Max. This series drops on January 13th. And I think it's going to drop with the first 3 episodes of January the 13th. So, you can come back to TeamJVS's channel as I will be giving, and maybe with Sam, a spoiler review of every episode released for Peacemaker. So we'll do the first one review for the first 3 episodes, and then we'll do subsequently one for every episode right after the episode airs on HBO Max. So then you can check it out, get our full opinions about it, because I have some opinions about this show. I love some of these reveals that I can't tell any of you about until you check it out, especially for people who love DC and love DC's universe. I can safely say maybe this is the first show outside of the CW where you won't be fully disappointed. That's the best way to put it. I mean, or a good cousin of Doom Patrol. Well, because Doom Patrol was great. So this is like a good cousin of Doom Patrol in the same realm of adult humor, the same realm of everything humanly possible. If this is going to be the direction that DC decides to take their projects on HBO Max as it pertains to the television series, I don't think they can be stopped, because I would love to see other characters that I would have never thought about and you give this type of treatment to. If they could do this multiple times, I think they may have hit on something that no one else is doing right now. And hopefully the Peacemaker will launch more of these projects. This has been another JVS television review. Peace, people.